Welcome to today's lesson. We will be focusing on syntax and its effect on a piece of literature. Syntax is the way in which words are put together to form phrases, clauses, or sentences. So at this point in your literary career, you should be paying attention to sentence construction. Authors make distinct choices about the way that they arrange words and the length of their sentences. These choices have an impact on tone and mood. So by analyzing syntax, a reader can get a better idea about an author's attitude toward a subject, and syntax is also responsible for creating a certain mood in the reader. Obviously here, Yoda speaks in a syntax that's very strange to our ears. Many of the words seem to be reversed. Now, George Lucas could have made that decision to accomplish many purposes, but certainly one of those purposes is to establish that Yoda is a non-native English speaker who imports his sentence structure from his native language. It could also be that he wants people to hear his message, and using this strange syntax will force people to listen. The first example we will take a look at is from the Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. So the following lines are an example of very simple syntax. That night I sat on Tan Yu's bed and waited for him to touch me, but he didn't. I was relieved. These sentences are short and curt. They end abruptly. There's nothing flowery about them. It's powerful and it's concise. The narrator is in an uncomfortable arranged marriage, and the short and choppy sentences paired with the blunt language convey the tense, awkward, and stiff relationship between the two. So you're going to notice that often diction and syntax work together to create mood. In the second example, from A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, the sentences are long. They flow a bit more. Hemingway uses complex sentence structure to emphasize the laziness of his character. They left me alone, and I lay in bed and read the papers a while. The news from the front, and the list of dead officers and the list of decorations, and then reached down and brought up the bottle of Cinzano and held it straight up on my stomach, the cool glass against my stomach, and took little drinks, making rings on my stomach, from holding the bottle there between drinks, and watched it get dark outside over the roofs of the town. So the war has left Henry, the main character, coolly detached and numb. Hemingway captures the languid, sluggish nature of the narrator by using longer, drawn-out sentences with imagery and vivid description. You might notice that one sentence has many thoughts running together. You will see the comma "and" that bridges various extraneous ideas. This sentence structure conveys a relaxed train of thought that jumps from one idea to the next. So that repetition of comma and shows that all of his ideas are sort of running together. In addition to sentence length, the order of words is also an important factor in analyzing syntax. So typically in English, as we stated earlier, we write and speak with the subject before the verb. So for instance, we would say that the chicken crossed the road, not the road was crossed by the chicken. So the subject of the sentence is always doing the action. However, there are certain times when you might want to emphasize the action or even the object of the sentence. So for instance, 100 votes are required to pass the bill. In that case, you want to emphasize the votes that are required to pass the bill, not necessarily the people doing the action. Also, the metropolis has been scorched by the dragon's fiery breath. In that case, the metropolis is the focus of the sentence. It's been scorched. We don't want to emphasize the dragon by saying the dragon's fiery breath scorched the city, because we're trying to emphasize the damage done to the metropolis. Next, we're going to take a look at a few examples from Chapter 3 of Mice and Men and analyze the effect that syntax has on mood and tone. First of all, you might have noticed that overall, Steinbeck uses very simple syntax in Of Mice and Men. This is because these are simple men that he is writing about. His main characters are uneducated, and they speak in a dialect that mostly consists of slang to each other. The following lines of syntax take place in the moments before Carlson shoots Candy's dog. Notice they are short and choppy. This serves to build suspense and tension. Candy did not answer. The silence fell on the room again. It came out of the night and invaded the room. These very simple sentences are subject verb, subject verb, subject verb, and they allow the reader to feel the heavy tension that the men in the room also feel. The first sentence of the next few lines gets a little bit longer as one of the men attempts to break the silence by shuffling a deck of cards, but the sentence structure again falls back to small, abrupt phrases that follow the same grammatical pattern of subject-verb. He rippled the deck nervously, and the little snapping noise drew the eyes of all the men in the room so that he stopped doing it. The silence fell on the room again. A minute passed, and another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Now, we don't want to leave out diction here because, again, syntax and diction go hand in hand in creating mood. So notice how the words room and silence are mentioned over and over again to emphasize this blanket of awkwardness that's looming. George brought the cards together tightly and studied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. Finally, when the shot sounds, breaking the silence, the men wait anxiously for Candy's reaction. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly at the old man. Every head turned toward him. These sentences remain quick and abrupt, much like the explosion of the gun. Lastly, the tension is broken and despair sweeps over Candy. For a moment, he continued to stare at the ceiling. Then he rolled slowly over and faced the other way and lay silent. These sentences are not too much longer, but they do contain more prepositional phrases and adjectives like for a moment and slowly. Our next example of syntax, also in chapter 3, is a bit different. Here, George goes over the dream with Lenny. In describing it, he uses longer, drawn-out sentences. Much like Hemingway's character's wistful longing, George details the dream with a sense of longing, and the sentence structure helps to mimic this tone. So notice how many of his sentences begin with and. This structure creates a suspense and a sense of building up to something. As he finishes one idea, he begins another. The thoughts are unorganized and they jump around a bit, but this conveys his sense of happiness and excitement. And we could have a few pigs. I could build a smokehouse like the one Grandpa had, and when we kill a pig, we can smoke the bacon and the hams and make sausages and all like that. And when the salmon run up the river, we could catch 100 of them and salt them down or smoke them. We could have them for breakfast. They ain't nothing so nice as smoked salmon. When the fruit come in, we could can it. And tomatoes, they easy to can. Every Sunday we'd kill a chicken or a rabbit. Maybe we'd have a cow or a goat, and the cream is so goddamn thick you gotta cut it with a knife and take it out with a spoon. So again, the ideas sort of run into each other, and the last sentence here really depicts that. All kinds of vegetables in the garden, and if we want a little whiskey, we can sell a few eggs or something, or some milk. So he jumps from vegetables to whiskey to eggs and milk. The dream is not clear or concrete. It's sort of a blurry dream that never quite comes to fruition, and these sentences the sentence structures mimic that idea. Our last set of example sentence structures comes from the fight scene between Lenny and Curly. Notice how the sentences again become short and choppy. As you read, you could almost imagine a sports announcer giving a play-by-play in the same manner. He got up and tried to retreat. Curly was balanced and poised. He slashed at Lenny with his left and then smashed down on his nose with a right. Lenny gave a cry of terror. Blood welled from his nose. "George," he cried, "make him let me alone, George." He backed until he was against the wall, and Curly followed, slugging him in the face. Lenny's hands remained at his sides. He was too frightened to defend himself. It also follows the strict structure of subject-verb. Lenny does this, Curly does that. So it kind of has a rhythm to it, and you can almost imagine dancing around in a boxing ring with these two. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to explain how syntax affects tone and mood. So first tell me what syntax is, and then explain how it can affect the tone or mood of a piece of literature. And just in one well-organized, well-developed paragraph, discuss this. And remember, in life, the test comes first and learning the lesson follows.